If you are a Caitlin Clark fan, if you're an Indiana Fever fan, this is something you already know. However, for the haters out there, the old WNBA fandom, many of you call them the slows, for those fans, they're in complete denial. We've tried to tell people Caitlin Clark moves the needle.
Listen to this. Sophie Cunningham just shocked everyone with a huge revelation on her podcast. She openly declared, "The next team I sign with better give me a bigger contract, so I can finally buy a house and settle down comfortably." That single line hit the Indiana Fever locker room like a thunderbolt. This wasn't your usual lighthearted talk. It was a bold and deliberate message from one of their most underrated but essential players. The meaning behind her words runs deep, raising massive questions about the team's future, especially with superstar Caitlin Clark, who's already redefining women's basketball. This goes way beyond money. It's about the very core of what the Fever are trying to build around their once-in-a-generation player. And if Cunningham truly walks away, you can bet chaos and disappointment will explode from the top down.
So Sophie Cunningham is one of the biggest names in the WNBA. And as well as that, she's also one of the best glue guys, role players in the entire league. Say we want about Sophie Cunningham, she shot 63% true shooting percentage while being a well above average defender. I'm not going to say a great defender, but like well above average defender. She's one of the better defenders on the Fever, and she's somebody that originally usurped DeWanna Bonner as a starter.
Check this out. Sophie Cunningham's sudden revelation instantly set off alarms for anyone invested in the Indiana Fever's championship hopes, and honestly, for Caitlin Clark's long-term success as well. Losing Cunningham, who's widely recognized for her sharp three-point shooting and her irreplaceable glue player impact, would create a gaping void. That's not the kind of loss you can simply patch up overnight. It would directly disrupt the team's vital offensive spacing and defensive rhythm, both key to helping Clark perform at her absolute peak. Her potential departure represents a major blow, one that could seriously undo the chemistry and balance the Fever have worked so hard to establish around their rising superstar. This isn't some minor roster shuffle. It's a deep structural shock that could completely alter the team's competitive identity.
We've tried to tell people Caitlin Clark moves the needle unlike anybody else in this league or everybody else in this league. It just sort of is what it is. Fans are coming to see one particular player, and along with that carries over the support to the entire team. Well, Forbes has released a rather very interesting insight report that tells you exactly how much the Indiana Fever's social media engagements are actually monetarily worth.
For Caitlin Clark, the pressure has never been greater. She entered the league with enormous expectations, completely transforming WNBA viewership and drawing millions of fresh eyes to the game. The bar isn't just set at being competitive anymore. It's about chasing real championship glory. That's why losing a steady, selfless, and high-impact player like Sophie Cunningham, especially if it's tied to poor financial decisions, would sting on multiple levels. It exposes deeper cracks in the Fever's roster-building strategy, which directly affects Clark's chances to win at the level everyone expects. You can almost feel the frustration building. A superstar who's revolutionized the sport but isn't being surrounded with the right on-court help. And that raises major doubts about the franchise's direction and whether they truly have a sustainable long-term plan in place.
It does sound like the Fever are not going to keep her. From her podcast, a lot of the time she'd been mentioning the Fever, and in the most recent podcast, she did not mention the Fever, and she said this.
And I think the next team I play for, I want a bigger contract, so then I can buy a house and be homey and cozy.
That's wild. It genuinely feels like Sophie Cunningham might be packing her bags for Liberty or maybe even heading straight to New York City. Her impact on the court is absolutely undeniable, and Truthfully, almost impossible to replace. The numbers back it up too. She's rocking an impressive 63% true shooting rate, paired with a reliable defensive skill set that easily makes her one of the Fever's top perimeter stoppers. And here's the kicker, her deadly 43% accuracy from deep, on high-volume attempts, forces defenses to stretch thin, opening up crucial driving and cutting lanes for players like Caitlin Clark to dominate. She thrives within the system, carrying a true winner's mindset and an on-court ego so minimal it's almost unheard of in professional sports. These traits go far beyond the stat sheet. They define her as the kind of player every successful team needs. She's the quiet force who lifts the performance of everyone around her, turning good lineups into great ones. That's exactly why her possible exit would hit even harder, leaving a noticeable void in both chemistry and leadership that numbers alone can't capture.
Well, Forbes has released a rather very interesting insight report that tells you exactly how much the Indiana Fever's social media engagements are actually monetarily worth, either on X or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I mean, all these posts have a monetary value to them based on engagement. Boy, their posts are worth a lot of money. They are worth a lot of money, and I can tell you right now, that's a little over 5 times higher than the next.
Beyond her on-court impact, Sophie Cunningham holds major weight off the floor too. She's consistently among the most searched WNBA players and has secured big-name sponsorships, including one with Arby's. Her popularity doesn't just add star power, it actively elevates the Fever's brand and strengthens fan engagement. Sure, Caitlin Clark is the primary driver behind the team's mind-blowing $55 million social media valuation, nearly 5 times higher than any other WNBA franchise, but players like Cunningham multiply that reach in ways numbers can't fully measure. Losing someone so marketable and genuinely adored isn't just a hit to the roster. It's a serious setback to the team's image, fan loyalty, and overall market momentum. Honestly, it feels like a baffling move, almost like the Fever are throwing away the kind of value most franchises would fight to protect. The Fever never would have gone after Cy Rivers. Let's be real, they likely had a completely different prospect in mind. But letting Sophie Cunningham slip away purely over financial reasons would be a massive blunder. Think about it, losing Cunningham doesn't just hurt the lineup. It shines an unflattering light on the Fever's past management moves. This is the same franchise that gave up the 8th overall pick, a valuable slot they used on rising talent Cy Rivers, just to acquire Cunningham in the first place. That trade was meant to add a seasoned, high-impact player who could immediately strengthen the roster. And now, after just a single season, to potentially let her walk away for nothing? It basically turns that big investment into a short-term rental. Analysts and fans alike are already labeling it one of the most short-sighted front office mistakes in recent memory. What once looked like a smart, win-now decision now seems more like a major strategic collapse, and the fallout could be expensive in more ways than one. 5 times higher, that's the kind of dominance we're talking about. Now take a look at this. The Indiana Fever's jaw-dropping $55 million social media valuation says everything about their growing influence and star power. But here's where things get messy. As attention builds, critics are absolutely tearing into the team's front office for what's being called one of the biggest blunders in recent WNBA memory. Imagine this, trading away for full years of a cost-controlled draft prospect for a player who, just a season later, might walk out due to contract frustrations. That's not just confusing, it's careless. And this goes far beyond simply retaining one player. It's about long-term vision, smart asset management, and proving the franchise actually knows how to build a sustainable championship contender instead of chasing short-term gains. The message couldn't be clearer. Unless Sophie Cunningham is somehow asking for a max contract, which seems extremely unlikely considering her current role, the Fever have made a massive and avoidable mistake. It risks their long-term strategy and completely weakens the short-term competitive window they're supposed to be protecting. It might sound unpopular, but let's be honest. Sophie might be slightly better than Lexi, yet the difference isn't that big. Sure, Lexi is younger, but even she doesn't deserve a max deal either. When you're caught between two wings who aren't max-level talents but both want that kind of money, you're left with a tough choice. And either way, it's a losing position. What makes it worse is that the team could have had Sia Rivers on a cost-controlled rookie deal for the next 4 years, saving money and ensuring flexibility for future growth. At the same time, how likely is it that Steph White wouldn't have developed Sia Rivers at all and just left her sitting on the bench? That's the real question. What's truly happening behind the scenes appears to come down to money. Sophie Cunningham has been very vocal about wanting a higher-paying deal, and honestly, it's a fair demand considering her consistent performance and overall contribution to the team. However, the Fever are currently boxed in by salary cap limits and several difficult roster decisions as they continue to shape the squad around Caitlin Clark. This situation creates a serious dilemma. How can they retain key role players without sabotaging their long-term financial flexibility? If the Fever either can't or choose not to meet Cunningham's market value, it could be a worrying sign of misplaced priorities within the organization's decision-making structure. This isn't just about one player walking away. It's a statement about how the franchise truly values its most important pieces. According to Lee, the CEO of STN Digital, team valuations across the league are skyrocketing. Television ratings are hitting record highs, and perhaps more importantly, social media influence is at an all-time peak. Through a system known as the social value metric, researchers measured the estimated paid media equivalent generated by organic posts, factoring in impressions, video views, and engagement to determine what that same exposure would cost through traditional advertising. In simpler terms, it shows just how much financial value teams gain without spending a dime. Adding to the tension, there's also the constant internal comparison with Lexi Hall. She's younger and viewed as a developing wing, yet many analysts insist that Sophie Cunningham is the more reliable and productive player right now. So, if both are pushing for major contracts, the Fever find themselves cornered, forced to make a difficult financial and strategic decision that could shape their future. The unpopular truth is that Sophie provides more immediate impact and reliability, but the organization may favor the younger Hall because of her long-term upside. Even though neither player truly fits the profile of a max contract talent, this internal struggle, if managed poorly, could result in the loss of a dependable veteran without securing an equally valuable replacement. That kind of misstep would only make the team's competitive picture even murkier and far more difficult to stabilize moving forward. She's definitely not in the same league as KK Timpson. I've followed her performance closely all season, and while some might argue, oh, KK could have shown more progress if Steph had given her extra minutes, the reality tells a different story. Watching her play overseas in Europe, it's clear she hasn't taken that next step. She dominates weaker opponents but looks completely out of rhythm against stronger teams. Her overall development seems stagnant, and honestly, that's a worrying sign for her future growth. That's a serious concern. The team has now reached a point where it must be brutally realistic. If they don't keep Sophie, the consequences could be severe. Adding to the Fever's problems on the wing is the stalled growth of KK Timpson. Despite early optimism about her potential, it's becoming increasingly evident that her development has plateaued. She's been struggling against stronger European competition and hasn't shown the kind of improvement the team was hoping for. Because of that, the Fever can't realistically count on Timpson to step up if Cunningham departs. Losing Sophie while Timpson remains underdeveloped would leave the roster dangerously thin on the perimeter. That would strip Caitlin Clark of dependable shooting options and versatile defenders, worsening an already fragile situation. On the business side, recent data revealed that the Indiana Fever topped the entire league in social value, an estimated $55.04 million, along with 38.73 million engagements and 1.17 billion impressions during the 2025 season. To put it in perspective, the second-place team, Dallas, generated only $8.61 million. That's a massive drop-off. This shows how essential Sophie Cunningham truly is. Her rare combination of shooting consistency, defensive toughness, and selfless attitude makes her invaluable. Her zero-ego mentality allows her to adapt to any role without complaint, proving she's the ultimate team-first player, a quality that's becoming almost impossible to find in modern professional sports. Unless the Fever have someone like Aya McBride secretly waiting in the wings, Sophie's unique skill set simply can't be duplicated. This isn't just about replacing a scorer. It's about losing a player who elevates everyone around her while never needing the spotlight. Her absence wouldn't just show up on the stat sheet. It would create a deep void in chemistry, communication, and overall team rhythm. And forget the whole enforcer narrative. What truly matters is her efficiency and consistency. She shoots an impressive 43% from 3, does it at high volume, and still manages to stay perfectly within the system. She plays her role, contributes selflessly, and has the mindset of a pure winner. She's not entirely ego-free, no player is, but she comes pretty close. What's even more striking is the tone of Cunningham's own podcast comments. They don't sound like random speculation, they sound like confirmation. Her words strongly imply she's already had direct discussions with the organization. It feels like she's either been told outright that she won't be re-signed, or that the team isn't willing to match her contract expectations. This doesn't sound like a leverage play or negotiation bluff. It's the quiet frustration of someone already preparing to begin a new chapter in her professional career. Making such an early public statement points to either a serious collapse in contract negotiations or a deliberate organizational choice to move in another direction, both of which send a troubling signal about how the Fever are handling their most valuable assets. It reflects a potential disconnect between player management and the team's long-term vision. What makes this even more striking is the data behind the team's social performance. Year over year, the Fever recorded a 505% jump in engagements, a 251% rise in impressions, and a 344% surge in overall social value. That's absolutely staggering growth. And yet, despite those incredible numbers, the next team on the list still trailed far behind by nearly $37 million in social value. That kind of gap underscores just how massive Indiana's presence has become. It makes you wonder, with that level of momentum and visibility, why risk disrupting what's clearly working so well? On top of that, the fallout from this potential mistake could shake the Fever's entire draft approach. The organization made a major investment to acquire Sophie Cunningham, even giving up a highly valuable draft pick under the belief that she'd be a long-term cornerstone. But if she ends up walking away for nothing, that trade essentially becomes a total loss, a wasted opportunity with no lasting return. Sure, WNBA teams sometimes place less emphasis on draft picks, but giving up the 8th overall selection for what could amount to just a single season of production is a huge strategic blunder. It reflects a troubling lack of foresight when it comes to constructing a future-proof roster around their franchise centerpiece. Reportedly, the Fever's front office is trying to free up cap space to sign Dana Bonner, which raises another major concern. Will they sacrifice Sophie Cunningham just to afford Natasha Howard's max contract? Because if the plan is to retain Howard, whose offensive rhythm often stalls ball movement, at the expense of losing Cunningham, that's deeply unsettling. Honestly, the whole situation sounds like it's coming from someone who already knows their fate has been sealed. The tone, the timing, and the details all suggest this isn't speculation. It's the voice of a player who's been told, directly or indirectly, that she's out of the team's future plans. Now here's the shocking part. An alarming rumor is circulating that the Fever may actually be prioritizing a max contract for Natasha Howard instead of re-signing Sophie Cunningham. That possibility has left analysts across the basketball world stunned. While Howard is undeniably talented, her play style tends to slow the tempo and interrupt ball movement, whereas Cunningham enhances rhythm, spacing, and flow within the offense. Choosing to center the roster around a player who disrupts offensive pace, rather than one who perfectly complements a modern, fast-moving system built around Caitlin Clark, completely defies 2 decades of basketball evolution. It highlights a troubling misunderstanding of what it truly takes to construct a winning team in today's game. What's even more surprising is how undervalued this decision looks when compared to the league's broader landscape. The Fever dominate in social and financial metrics, yet rumors like this raise questions about their long-term vision. Analysts have gone so far as to label this move basketball blasphemy, arguing that Clark's greatness depends on teammates who can space the floor, make quick reads, and play unselfishly. All traits Cunningham embodies naturally. Howard, in contrast, brings a style far less suited to Clark's offensive system. letting go of one of the WNBA's most adaptable, low-ego contributors, especially when she could likely be retained for far less than a max deal, would be a critical miscalculation. A player like Sophie, valued similarly to someone like Bridget Carlton, ranks easily among the league's top 40 to 50 in pure impact. Losing her over a salary cap gamble could derail the Fever's chemistry and hinder Clark's full potential for years to come. And beneath all this, a growing sentiment is emerging that Indiana's recent success might have been less about smart planning and more about pure luck. If that's true, then this decision could expose just how fragile the Fever's foundation really is. I mean, landing Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston was already a stroke of incredible luck, and the fact that Boston adapted her game so seamlessly to complement Clark's style only amplified that fortune. Add in Kelsey Mitchell's growth into an efficient off-ball cutter, and it's clear much of the Fever's recent success has come from a series of fortunate alignments rather than deliberate planning. Even the hardship signings the team made didn't truly align with their up-tempo, run-and-gun offensive system. Now, with Sophie Cunningham potentially on her way out, there's a growing sense that the team's luck might finally be running dry. Without a coherent long-term strategy or strong roster intelligence, the Fever's upward momentum could collapse quickly, something that would undoubtedly frustrate Clark, who's used to winning and thrives in structure. As the offseason approaches, the outlook for Indiana feels increasingly uneasy. Analysts are openly worried that poor scouting, questionable draft decisions, and mismanaged free agent moves could undo the progress the team has made. What once looked like the rise of a powerhouse now feels uncertain, clouded by the fear that the Fever's front office may squander the rare generational talent they were so lucky to acquire. The real fear here is that the Fever aren't intentionally building a cohesive roster designed to unleash Caitlin Clark's generational talent. Instead, they seem to be stumbling toward wasted opportunities, risking both team chemistry and player trust. If this pattern continues, Clark's incredible individual brilliance could end up buried under organizational mistakes, her efforts shining brightly but translating into very little team success. This goes far beyond wins and losses. It's about honoring the massive investment the franchise made in their superstar and proving they're serious about creating a contender around her. Sophie Cunningham's rumored departure isn't just another roster move. It's a blaring alarm echoing through the entire organization. If the Fever truly let one of the league's most efficient, selfless, and team-oriented role players leave for nothing, it would be a colossal management failure. Such a decision would shatter the competitive window Caitlin Clark has opened and risk alienating the very player who gave Indiana its national spotlight. Cunningham's value can't be measured by numbers alone. Her presence embodies culture, balance, and winning basketball. Losing her over preventable missteps could permanently reshape the Fever's trajectory. What do you think? Should the Fever fight to keep Sophie Cunningham and protect their momentum? Or are they about to make the kind of mistake that sets the franchise back for years? Let me know your take in the comments below.